Today on CityCast Boise, happy Friday! Number one news dad Justin Core from KTVB is here to sift through the week's headlines. We're talking shakeups at City Council, some encouraging mental health data, and a record-breaking start to both our heat and our river floating season. Plus, some big hair and a big anniversary. It's Friday, July 21st. I'm Frankie Barnhill filling in for Emma Arnold, and this is what Boise's talking about. Justin, thanks for coming back on CityCast Boise.
Frankie, thank you. It's my absolute pleasure to be here in the thick of the summer.
Truly, the thick of the summer, the thick of the triple-digit heat. It's fully engulfed Boise. I keep looking at the National Weather Service forecast and going, really? Really? I think the high for Saturday is 106. So how are you coping?
Could be 106. Could be 107. Look, I cope by blaming people who are absolutely not responsible for it. Normally, it's whatever meteorologist I'm working with that morning. This morning, it was Sophia Bliss. So This is all Sophia's fault.
It. Yeah.
I don't know what I did to her, but this is just flat out mean. We're hosting like a big family function outside Saturday in 107. So I don't know if we will be, actually. We may just cram everybody inside. It is going to be real hot out there and really in the thick of a string of triple-digit days.
Yeah. And that's the thing is the streaks, we can get the highs every once in a while, but we're having triple-digit heat many days in a row, potentially record-breaking for that streak, which, lots of people understandably have been coping by floating the river. I just got a press release from Boise Parks and Rec that it's actually been a record-breaking year so far, and the season only started June 29th. Apparently, more than 30,000 people have hit the water between Barber Park and Ann Morrison, which is just sounds incredible and is like up over 20% since last year. So you're one of those people, right? You're on the river every day. I just know it.
I have not floated yet, but when I do, I wear a full suit, just like I do in the morning on Channel 7.
Yeah.
But it really is one of the iconic, great Boise activities, and it's a great way to beat the heat. But this heat continues to be like really dangerous for folks who can't beat the heat in that way. So, last time I was on, I called myself News Dad. Yep. And as a news dad, I like to say, look, do as I say, not as I do. And so you got to be real careful, on the river. No horseplay, hijinks, stuff like that. And people might say, Justin, I knew you when you were a kid. And that was not the case on the Boise River. You went swimming in irrigation ditches and all that stuff. And it's like, well, that was a different me. You cannot do that anymore. And there's this running joke I have actually with Sophia that when the weather is at its worst, I'm out in it doing yard work. So when it was like 105 the other day, I'm like mowing the lawn. She's like, Justin, please don't do that. Yeah, you're a man of a certain age. So yeah, if folks can use that air conditioning, get inside and use that. And Frankie, I know you have some information like on cooling centers around Boise for folks who don't have that available to them.
For sure. And that's the thing is like, it's great to talk about the ways you can beat the heat. And those of us who are privileged to have air conditioning and access to that every day. But there are plenty of people who don't. Of course, with climate change, we're seeing these prolonged streaks of heat go on. Like 2 years ago, we broke a record. Last year, we broke a record. This is a pattern. It's happening around the globe. Earth hit its highest global temperature just a couple weeks ago. And so with these temperatures not going away, and every summer it seems like we're hearing record breaking, it's good to know that there are, places for people to go who don't have access. So here's a few places. In Boise, there's Boise City Hall, which isn't that great that Boise City Hall opens up as it should. It makes sense. Downtown Boise Library, of course. Cathedral of the Rockies is another place that people might know about that also opens itself up for folks to cool down. The YMCA in downtown, in West Boise, South Meridian. there's a few other places for people to know and that you can stop in. And I'll just say, maybe if you see somebody out there who seems to be, having some trouble, if you have some water, a water bottle in your car that you can keep cold or keep in the freezer and then take it in the car with you. If you notice somebody, that's always good to do. And maybe just mention one of those places, or make sure that they know how to get there or help them out and get there possibly. I don't know, just looking out for our neighbors, right? When we're going through these kind of heat streaks is important.
How about that? Isn't that the Boise thing, to look out for each other? I mean, it's supposed to be. But yeah, you talk about the trends. Phoenix just broke a record for like 3
Phoenix.
straight weeks of being 110 plus, not just 100 plus, 110 plus. Maggie O'Meara, who I co-anchor with, her sister lives down there. She has to use oven mitts to drive just when she gets into the car because the steering wheel is so hot. Look, at some point, you got to figure that Mother Nature is telling you, like, hey, I don't want you to live here. Yeah. Like, the 2 million of you who are here, I don't know why. I made a sweltering desert and y'all wanted to live here. But Boise typically has been pretty temperate. And again, we're seeing those temperatures climb. And when it gets hot enough, in really something that only entertains Maggie and I often break into a very poor Savannah, Georgia accent because this flower is wilting. These temperatures are intolerable, Frankie.
It's sweltering. I get it. Yeah. I think one of our frequent guests, Minerva Jane, I think she's right along there with you on all of those points.
I love Minerva. That's awesome.
I know. She's amazing. Yeah, we have a great episode that she told us all of her tricks and tips for dealing with the heat because she absolutely hates it. So totally get that. Well, I want to pivot to another story that came out last couple weeks, which is that councilperson Holly Woodings, I guess today technically no longer her last day officially as a councilperson on the Boise City Council. She has resigned her seat early ahead of her term ending. And Mayor Lauren McLean earlier this week during a council meeting named, a day in her honor. How surprised were you by this resignation news that Woodings was going to pick up and move, not only leave her seat, but also pick up and move her family to Washington, D.C. later?
Yeah, I think pretty surprised. And we had learned a month or two before that she was not going to run for re-election, but then to announce that, hey, I'm moving next few weeks. So I'm resigning, the top position on the council, not counting the mayor. And she's local. She's been around here a long time, worked hard to build that career, but, her family's going to do something else. This comes after earlier in the year, February, March, Elaine Clegg, who served on city council for, 19, 20 years.
Yeah.
She moved to VRT. A number of other council members aren't necessarily going to seek re-election. So regardless how this election goes in November, we're coming up on that, it's going to look like a very different council as far as different names, different faces.
Yeah.
I also want to make the point, though, that ideologically, I cannot see the council changing that much. I think that some people may say, oh, well, it's going to move far to the right. It's like, no, I mean, it's still probably going to be pretty center left because when you look at like a statewide election, really a Boise City election is pretty much the inverse. And it looks like Lucy Willett's council member, really the only one who identifies as a Republican. At last check, she's running unopposed. That changes daily, so I'd have to check again.
Sure.
But she's about as far right as you're going to get. Everybody else is going to be left or center left. So, and you're going to see potentially some familiar names. A lot of people running who have served in the state house, like Grant Burgoyne, and other people who have run before, like Meredith Stead. So I think that it's going to look very different. I don't know if it's going to behave very different.
Yeah.
Also, I have an interesting story about the new president,
yes,
Jimmy
yeah.
Halliburton.
Yes.
Used to run the Boise Bicycle Project, did a spectacular job with that nonprofit. If you've ever been to one of their giveaways to kids in needs, getting those bikes, oh my gosh, it'll warm your heart for months. But He came on the noon show. Gosh, this was maybe a decade ago when he was just with Boise Bicycle Project to talk about Tour de Fat, a big sort of yes,
which was the precursor to Goat Head Fest. Which yes,
so if you know anything about Goat Head Fest, it's a party with some cycling attached. So he comes in shirtless, with like a leather vest on, and then like also a leather and like rhinestone top hat, and talked to him for 4 minutes about Tour de Fat. And if you told me that guy would one day be the president of the Boise City Council, I'd be like, wow. I'd probably say, perfect. Of course he will be.
Right. I definitely recall the days when prior to him being on the council and around Tour de Fat for those moments. I think I remember him with a top hat. Yep. And kind of the whole like steampunk look was the vibe at Tour de Fat, like circa 2014, probably. Oh my gosh, that's incredible. But it is fascinating what you said about even with this new district system that, was imposed upon Boise by the conservative Idaho state legislature, that you think that overall the makeup of the council from a political standpoint, even though they're nonpartisan, that most of the council will probably lean liberal or lean Democrat as far as affiliation, even with this.
Yeah, and great point, Frankie. I forgot to mention that this will be the first election coming up in November where every seat is going to be elected by a district. The last election, there were only 2-3 seats up for election, but this year, all 6, the council member will have to live in that district. And look, I'm not saying it, but political analysts have said the whole idea of that new law that the legislature passed, which leans very far right, was to try to instill more Republicans on the council. Again, Lucy Willett's been very open about being a Republican, but I just don't see in the other districts that necessarily happening. I think the farthest right you're going to get is a moderate, just because, look at the voting record all throughout the city. And, Patrick Bajan, pretty moderate, he'll vote maybe a little conservative sometimes. But again, I don't see ideologically that changing the council all that much.
Yeah. Well, between now and November, there's still work to be done. It's this interesting moment where Councilperson Jimmy Halliburton is now the council president. He has been on the council for several years, but again, kind of what you're alluding to, that former Councilperson Elaine Clegg and former Council President Elaine Clegg was there for a couple of decades, and Wooding's also now leaving after being there for several years. There's still more stuff that needs to be done. It's kind of this interesting moment where Mayor McLean is going to have to appoint somebody to fill Wooding's seat, and then the voters will have an opportunity to decide who should be in that seat long term.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you look at this comes after 2 other appointments. So really half of the council, 3 of the 6 would have been appointed and then approved by the council, but appointed and then approved by the council in the last half year. And as you said, really the big thing left for them is that budget, that city budget. And that's going to affect everything. That is a lot of big work. It's going to affect people's property taxes, what they're paying, and then just what programs the city continues to do. And I would say if you have hot takes on that, let them know. I think they've already had some workshops. That public comment period, maybe officially, I think it's still going on, but send an email. They'll read that stuff. They want to hear from you.
Well, another story I want to talk about that is a little bit more of a statewide one, but definitely affects Boise, is 988 calls, which of course, for anyone who knows anyone experiencing a mental health crisis, or if you yourself are, know that there is help. We'll put links and things in the show notes, but the thing to know is this national number 988 that will connect you with someone in Idaho with the Idaho Suicide Prevention hotline to help talk you through whatever you're going through. This was fascinating, Justin, though, some news, because that was a year ago that this switch to 988 as the phone number everywhere, including in Idaho, happened. What do we know about what's happened since?
Well, it was really sort of a decision that just made a lot of sense, right? The Idaho Suicide Prevention Hotline, it's something you could easily Google and find, but 988 is a number that you can really easily remember. It's like 911, except for eights instead of ones. And when you are in crisis, you might not want to take that initiative or go through the steps to look it up, find it. This is something that you can just know. And it seems to have worked, that convenience. According to Health and Welfare, helped answer 12,600 calls in Idaho last year. Another more than 11,000 were made directly to the Idaho Crisis and Suicide Hotline. Altogether, it's more than a 10% increase from the year before. Suicide still the 9th leading cause of death in Idaho, but our rate has gone down. And this is something that really is saving lives. And it's critical that when people are able to take the steps to reach out to someone here locally, they're in crisis, that they can make that call easily, that it's convenient, and they can get a hold of someone, and that they can talk to someone right away. I think nationally, calls on average were answered within about half a minute, 35 seconds, which is incredible. The people manning this hotline are really, really doing incredible work.
Yeah, and the fact that people should know, if it gives them comfort to know that they are going to talk to somebody from Idaho, because it does direct, as we said, to this pre-existing nonprofit, but now they're being linked up through the 988 number. On the one hand, it sounds like, 10% increase of calls makes it sound like more people are going through crisis, but what experts are saying is no, it means that more people are finding help, and that's the key here. I will say Idaho, it's a stain on our reputation that we have such a high suicide rate. It is absolutely horrible. And one of the things that I think our state should be up in arms about. And there have been moves, to address this. But it is a little bit of, it is very nice to see, of course, and encouraging to see that rate has started to go down.
Yeah. And you see those rates higher as well. And I haven't looked at the latest numbers, but historically suicide rates are higher in rural communities where it's that attitude of toughening up, but also increased isolation.
Yeah, totally. The individualism attitude a little bit at a lot of those Western rural states. Yeah, that's very true. But it's not the only, it's just a first step, right? In getting help.
Right, exactly. And I used to do some work with mental health company, and there are so many resources out there, NAMI.org. Just you can go there and you can see all of them listed for you. And then if you're lucky enough to have insurance, a lot of health insurance companies understand now that mental health is health. Mental health care is health care, and it's all tied to your physical health care. So, they're paying for free sessions annually with mental health care professionals. And the country is still in a mental health care crisis, and certainly our city is as well. But steps like this, 988, these numbers, seeing more people reach out for help when they really need it, that's all encouraging, and it's all steps in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, I need to wrap up on something that's just has me definitely chuckling, which is your Instagram feed, specifically because recently you've been sharing a lot of photos around KTVB's 70th birthday. Congrats to all of you. How does it feel to be 70?
Oh, boy, I don't feel a day over 44 because literally I'm not. But yes, the station plenty old. And we did some serious, really cool look backs on our founding and our founders, like Georgia Davidson, one of the first women to own a television station.
Incredible story. I hadn't heard of her. I have to tell you. Yeah.
1953. Yeah. When you saw very few women in boardrooms. Yeah. She absolutely owned this place and got us all going. It was key. Actually, another female station owner, was up in Seattle, Washington. So really all the Northwest breaking ground. But for me, I went through our picture archive, went to marketing, and I'm like, do you have like some old pictures that I'm seeing around? They're like, yeah, absolutely. Here you go. And some of these were newsroom photos, us out on shoots, but others I have no explanation for.
No
and
context. Yeah.
I've reached out to viewers and I'm like, what is this? Mostly from the 50s to the 70s. Some people have tried to explain it to me. First, vehicles. So we apparently used to own a Partridge family style bus. And if any of you know the Partridge family, good for you. Also, we had a creepy windowless van with the word Newsbeat on it, and then a horse-drawn wagon. And probably we only used that for the fair.
Right.
But I like to think that we also took that to breaking news, that we had a guy, driving the wagon down Fairview, trying to get to the house fire. Probably not. I saw an ad. We maybe used to employ a chimp, or maybe it was just
what?
It was probably just a show featuring a chimp, but he actually had like KTVB embroidered, logoed his little chimp bib on.
Yeah.
Little chimp overalls. So I'm like, gosh. Again, I like to think we absolutely employed a chimp. He probably rode in that wagon. Found an old weather map, and man, it looked like the states, including Idaho, were just drawn from memory, like a bad memory. So the coast was just a straight line. It's not, if you've ever seen a map of Washington. Also, Idaho, it was they thought well, it's just like a rectangle with a piece out of it. Right. And they just sort of slapped that up there. And
incredible.
It was a while ago. All right. But it wasn't before maps were drawn. It wasn't that long ago. They could have checked that. And then, Frankie the Hare. I use a blow dryer, but not like these folks. My goodness. The old phrase of the bigger the hair, the closer to God. These folks were trying to get real close to God. Bouffants, beehives, and then guys as well. It was just big and tall and just floofy. So the style, just incredible.
It really is awesome because it's there's other stations and other outlets in Idaho that have been around for a long time. It's 70 years, the oldest TV station in the state, and just the fact that you have photos that go back that long. Honestly, it's it just tells a version of a story of Boise through the years, literally, even if it's just through costuming and hair, as you said. And I hope that chimp was unionized. I don't know. I saw a photo of him.
He better have been. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, totally. It's okay. So much fun with all these photos. Has there been any story or anything, Georgia Davidson, her story as the leader of the news station at a time when that was very rare across the country. Anything else that stands out to you when you look back at all these years of this organization that you've been a part of?
Yeah, I think you touched on it, that it's looking at not just the history of KTVB, but the history of the whole community, and the fact that we actually had very, very few GMs, which Georgia was, along with being the owner, and news directors in the history of the station. I think total number of general managers we've had was, I don't know, like 4 or 5, something like that, in that entire 70 years. So we've had consistent leadership there, and that's allowed us to be a consistent member of the community. And that's such a pleasure and a joy for me, a kid who grew up outside Meridian in Ada County, to grow up watching this station and these folks, and to be a part of that, and to be a part of this community, and then be able to be an even bigger piece of the community because I'm lucky enough to work here. It's really cool.
Yeah, well, we at CityCast Boise, we love all y'all at KTVB. We love having you on. We love having Alex Duggan on, et cetera, et cetera. So many of you. And congrats on the 70-year milestone. That's pretty cool. We'll be sure to link to both some of the crazy photos that you found in your Instagram, as well as some of the specials that you guys are doing over on your website.
Yeah, you can also do a search just for hashtag KTVB70. That should help you find most of that. And we all love y'all. Joe Paris tried to break his way into the podcast studio. He said accidentally, but it's like, nah, he was just that excited to talk to you, Frankie.
Accidentally on purpose. I know, Joe. I know. Well, thanks, Justin. Stay cool out there. Really appreciate your coming on today.
Absolutely my pleasure. Thank you, Frankie.
All right, that's all for this week here on CityCast Boise. The show is produced by Evelyn Avitia, Emma Arnold, and me, Frankie Barnhill. This week, Blake Hunter and Natalia Aldana wrote our Hey Boise newsletter, and our music is by local band Up As The Down Is The. Emma will be back in the host chair on Monday with an essential guide to staying safe in rattlesnake country. Stay chill this weekend, Boise.
My good friend, Joe Paris, zero decorum.
How are you waving me in?
I'm recording a podcast. No.
Waving you away.
Out.
Podcast are you on?
Love you, buddy. CityCast Boise, the only podcast.
All right, well, sorry.
All right.
Have a great podcast.
Love you, sweetheart. See you later. Okay, sorry. Let's try that again.